There's a world where legends race across city skylines, romance blossoms in glittering ballrooms, and there's magic around every corner. It's a world known to many as Great Britain. You've seen the action on screen. Now visit the real star of the show. Visit Great Britain. To discover more, go to tripadvisor.com/Great Britain.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi, pull up a bar stool. It's The Last Show. We'll cover a lot of things tonight, and here are some of the things you'll learn on the program. Consider this scenario. You buy yourself a camera. You start putting videos on the internet. You hope you succeed, and you do, but suddenly you're trapped by it all. Your massive social media following comes with expectations. When researchers looked at internet famous people, they found a hidden psychological cost to it all. In 10 minutes time, we'll explain to you why going viral isn't always winning. Then after that, snakes. Many people fear them, but are you hardwired to hate these reptiles? Or when you were young, did your mom whisper ew when seeing a snake and seal your fate? Halfway through the hour, we're asking whether fear of the slither is instinct or inherited. Okay, those are some of the topics on tonight's show. There will be more. You will learn more, but it snowed where I'm at today. And where there's snow in a city, there's disgusting snow piles. And with that, let's dive into the show.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
I live in New York City, where it dumped snow today. And for those living in an urban environment that gets snow, here's an all too familiar scene. At first, it's pristine, it's lovely, it's white. Then it gets shoveled and plowed to the side and gradually turns into an absolutely horrifying pile. It's got road grit. It looks sort of brown-gray, not to mention people throwing their dog poop in it. I could go on, but first I want to introduce my guest, a geologist and senior technical advisor at Pure Earth. His name is Gordon Binkhorst. Gordon, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, David.
I want to talk urban snow piles. First off, if I melted a chunk of horrifying urban snow into a delicious cocktail, why might I not want to drink that?
Well, let's start with the snow that's falling right now, David, because the snow right now is pretty pristine. And if you collected that and tested it, that you wouldn't find all that horrible stuff you've been discussing. However, as it sits there, and more salt that the city puts on, the sand that the city puts on, the dog poop, the dirt, the grime, the paint flecks, everything that gets mixed in and it gets concentrated as that snow melts into that black, disgusting, ugly stuff that we see.
So I heard lead, I heard salts, I heard paint chips. What exactly is in the average urban snow pile?
Well, all of that and a lot of bacteria to boot. I mean, the city puts down literally millions of pounds of salt to clear our roadways, which we're very thankful for. They also put down sand from whatever source they get it for to help with traction. And then there's more sort of like, I don't want to call them naturally occurring, but for New York, it's kind of natural. It's a dirty city. We have dirt and grime and grease from cars, old leaded gasoline deposits in the soil, paint flecks that come off and get spread everywhere. There's a natural, very high urban lead concentration in soils in New York.
Didn't something happen with the aqueducts in Rome or something? Like, shouldn't we not be using lead? Didn't we know that like thousands of years ago? Why is there lead paint chips in the snow?
No, we did ban lead in paint in 1978 in this country. Yet there is still plenty of historic paint out there with lead in it on buildings and bridges and exterior and interior, and it's a continual battle. And there are kids still who are being lead exposed and come down with lead poisoning because of the paint. Here we're talking just what gets deposited in the snow.
I grew up in Canada, and I recall the snow piles in Toronto not being quite as bad, but being bad. But the big advice that we had when we were kids is don't eat the yellow snow.
Absolutely.
I do wonder if eating a bit of pristine yellow snow might be healthier than eating the black urban snow in terms of what actual chemicals are in there.
I'm not going to recommend it, David, but I would hazard to say that's okay, because if you get stuck on a boat, they say you can drink your urine for hydration purposes.
Keep in mind, Gordon is a scientist, so what we're doing is a scientific inquiry here. So for broadcasting standards, we have broken no rules.
Yeah, so not recommending it, but yes, I think you'd be better off. And, the levels of lead that they found are in the hundreds of parts per billion, which is about, 10 times the drinking water standard. But again, who's drinking that black, icky snow? First of all, it's usually frozen, right? So you're not exactly going to scoop it up or even put it into an ice snowball. Right, so drinking it or ingesting it is probably a low probability. And to be honest, there's a lot of salt in there. And all that salt is also not very healthy for you. And in New York, when it all melts, where does it go? It goes into the East River and the Hudson River predominantly.
Some of the most pristine, clean waterways maybe on the planet.
Perhaps. I'm not going to opine on the quality of water, but yes, there are some issues there. But it is at least saline water, right? It is fresh water coming down, but it is tidal. So we got saline water washing up from New York Harbor.
So the dirt, the grime, the road grit, we all see it, and it doesn't surprise me what's in there. What did surprise me was the bacteria. Can you tell me more about that? Like, what kind of bacteria is found in these urban snow piles?
I don't know exactly the type, but I mean, it's everything from food waste to people, spitting on the snow, dogs pooping and peeing. All manners of bacteria are everywhere. And the only difference with snow, David, is it accumulates in the snow. What happens when it rains every day?
It washes away, yeah.
It all washes into the storm drains and winds up where? In the East River and the Hudson River. And I'd say the only difference is it's concentrated when the snow melts because it accumulates. And it also has the addition of all that salt that the city put on there.
So you're a geologist. Does sidewalk snow count as a sort of like urban sediment? Is it something worthy of study from a geological standpoint?
The sidewalk snow?
Yeah.
Is not sediment. That's not.
But it's got all this schmutz in it.
The schmutz is, yes, it will come as a grime and wind up in our tree wells and such. And that is, again, why we have elevated lead in the dirt around trees or in gardens in the city. That's all the result of all of what we just discussed.
Anything with metals that you want to say? Like another thing I found was like heavy, weird metals in there that we didn't expect.
I am sure I didn't see the full lab report, David, but I am sure there are other metals. Metals are also naturally occurring in our environment. Lead is naturally occurring. And I can't say, I know the urban soil quality in New York is not great. So I'm not surprised that we're getting elevated lead in the snow in the piles.
All right, we have to get to the highest brow portion of the interview, the most scholarly academic stuff we can cover, dog poop. Why? This is more speculative. I know you're a geologist, but why do people think they can throw their poop in the snow and the dog poop in the snow and then just bury it as if like it's not there? It's not going to be there when the snow melts.
I think that's exactly it. They just pretend it's not going to be there. But of course, I have a dog, and we used to let our dog out in the backyard during the snow because we didn't want to walk the dog. And in the spring, yes, it all accumulates on the grass and it's a mess. And also there's the issue of picking up poop with a plastic bag that is snow. You're going to get a handful of snow and dog poop. Not that fun, but yes, no, you should not leave your dog poop under any circumstances because, yes, it's disgusting.
That, I think, growing up in Toronto, dealing with snow more than in New York City, people actually picked up their dog leavings a little more. Here, it's like, I don't know, it's something about the snow on the streets just entitles owners to behave terribly. And then when it thaws, it's like, I don't know, horrific, I guess. Watch where you're walking. Keep your eyes on the road, I think, is what's important.
And they also poop everywhere because they don't even know where the underlying dirt might be. So it just winds up where it shouldn't.
Looking at how bad urban soil is regularly, are the snow piles really that much worse? Like, are they uniquely bad, or is this a general problem for urban environments, like in parks and on this, where the trees are and the sidewalk and stuff?
No, again, David, I think the snow accumulates at a ground surface in a way that rain wouldn't. Other than that, it's probably akin to the rain. The rain would wash it into the nearest storm drain, and it just happens to sit there on the snow and look ugly for a while. But other than that, I don't think there's really a substantive difference.
Well, Gordon, thanks for tackling this messy subject with me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
You're very welcome, David. Thank you.
Gordon Binkhorst is a geologist and senior technical advisor at Pure Earth. After the break, if you're internet famous, 1 million followers can feel like 1 million bosses. The twisted psychology of internet fame in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Explore your deepest desires, if you dare. The last show with David Cooper.
So you wanted to go viral on social media. Does that sound fun to you? Well, it turns out 1 million followers might come with 1 million tiny emotional hurdles. There is some psychological trouble that can come with internet fame, and if it happens to you, your biggest fans might be your biggest stressors. I am here with someone who's worked on this research area. She's a management and organizations professor at NYU Stern, and her name is Julianna Pillemer. Julianna, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I think being an influencer and having a loyal and huge following sounds great to most people. Like life will be easy when that happens. Is that kind of the assumption going in here?
Yeah, I think both in the research that we looked at and just like common knowledge, right? It's sort of like go viral, you've made it. That's the, gold at the end of the rainbow and you sail off into the sunset. And we found that really isn't the case. Spoiler alert. So I can go into that more about what that means.
Please do. And I want to talk a little bit about how influencers and internet celebrities, they can kind of be entangled with their audience or their following. So tell me about it.
Yeah, so we actually set out to do, we didn't go in, this research that I did is inductive. So what that means is a nerdy word for saying we didn't go in with a hypothesis. We started interviewing these creators. We were actually just really curious about their creative process. And we ended up discovering sort of this phenomenon that we called audience entanglement. The name comes from quantum entanglement. None of us are physicists, so please don't check us on like the actual science of what quantum entanglement is. But the idea is that despite being sort of separated by large distances, these creators felt this sort of intense interdependence and interrelatedness with this like imagined audience to the point that it became this sort of constant consideration in the work they were producing. So after many of them went viral, they felt this like initial high, and then it was kind of came crashing down and experienced this sense of initially what we call dysfunctional entanglement, which was a really sort of miserable state. They used terms like crumpled up ball of paper, chamber of despair to describe how they felt kind of at the peak of their success. So we were really actually surprised and shocked by this. This was not something we anticipated going in. And then it kind of became the crux of our study.
Now, do most people who are in this state of being internet famous, being successful creators, is having a massive following kind of like the finish line for them? And before they get there, do they think if they just amass the following, they'll have this happily ever after kind of effect?
I think they do. I mean, we look at, for example, like Mr. Beast, one of the most successful creators, right? And so many of his videos now are targeted at helping people get to this state, right? And he says absolutely nothing about, okay, you have 1 million people then who are watching your every move and reacting to your every, post. What do you do then? Similarly, in my world, right, in studying creativity and how we can make people more creative and motivated at work, right? This idea of having a product, a service, or just you being super successful is kind of treated as the dependent variable, right? This endpoint. And we knew very little about, okay, once you get widespread appeal, once you attain that audience, what happens? And so, yeah, that is kind of the default. And so both in sort of the real world and then in the research world, we knew very little about what happens at this point.
So tell me more about this entanglement. What do these creators think of their audience? What control does the audience have over them? What is sort of the emotional and psychological effect of always trying to please that audience?
Yeah, so there's kind of two flavors of this entanglement. The one that most of them go into initially, we call dysfunctional entanglement, which is pretty intuitive. It doesn't work well for them, right? So there are kind of three components to it. The first is the sense of sort of an oppressive dependence on audience reaction. So they are obsessing about, oh God, I created this and now I created this piece of it. We have visual artists and musicians, right? So I created this illustration. I'm going to put it out there. What is everyone going to think? And oh my God, I'm watching the likes come in and there aren't enough, or there are too many and that's really scary, or people are DMing me and I hate that. And so it's just like almost an obsession with the way the audience is reacting. There's also this obsession with the volatility of the platform. So trying to game the platform, right? So trying to kind of understand, okay.
The algorithm, so to speak.
The algorithm, right? To try to outdo the algorithm. And let me tell you, that does not go well, right? That does not go well for people. And what this results in what we call kind of distressing emotions, right? So feeling that despair, that chamber of despair, right? Feeling like you kind of can't go on. Many of them experience what we call a crisis of meaning. So like, why the F am I doing this even? What's the point of this?
So like video 1 gets 1 million views and then video
Right.
2 only gets 100,000.
Yes.
What's going on? Like this kind of stuff?
And they're like, I'm a total failure. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Now, and understanding these algorithms is kind of impossible because they have so many dimensions. We can't even like conceptualize them in our brains if we tried to. Chasing it though, what effect does it have on the person creating? Do they end up not happy? Like we talked about at the beginning of the interview, like being a great successful creator with a huge following doesn't really end up in kind of a happy place for these people?
In fact, it's the irony is this: the thing that they think is going to, be this end game, this happy ending, is actually the thing that makes them want to quit creating altogether. So many of them get to this space where they say, this just isn't sustainable. Like I cannot continue creating, feeling this way every day. And so many of them describe wanting to leave the platform altogether, envisioning a future where they're no longer creating. So it really, there is sort of an irony to it, that it's the thing that they think is going to make them the most happy in the world. And it's actually the thing that tanks their creative endeavors.
At the risk of just naming like an old cliche, it's kind of about the journey, not the destination. And if it's just all about amassing the following and not enjoying yourself while you do it, I can imagine it being kind of empty once you get there.
Super empty. Yeah, the words that they use to describe one that really stuck out to me, the crumpled up wallpaper, but a flattening effect, right? So they just said I was kind of flattening and suppressing myself to fit into this box that I think how my audience views me, right? And it's very two-dimensional. And so people who get stuck in that space, right, it's almost paralyzing, because if you're just creating, kind of thinking and trying to anticipate what not just your audience, but right, the algorithm is going to pick up, it ends up being sort of debilitating, and they can no longer do the work that they initially was so like moving for them and provided so much meaning. And so, yeah, it's a really sad state of affairs.
Is the recommendation to just focus on that, to focus on the meaning making of creating the videos, doing the content you love, and just kind of ignoring the following? I mean, what do you recommend to someone who has internet fame and finding themselves hearing what you're saying and kind of realizing that's them?
Yeah, so we found that actually they developed what we call entanglement management strategies. So strategies not to say, screw the audience, I don't care about that, I'm just going to do what I want to do, which is, I think, the sort of reaction that many people would think, okay, that's what you should do. You should just not worry about the audience. That doesn't work, because if you're a creator for your profession, you have to care about your audience. You're never not going to care about your audience, So they developed 3 strategies. The first is sort of the most intuitive. I think we call it distancing from audience input. They would set firm boundaries around when they engage with the audience. While initially they were reading every comment, checking every DM, kind of constantly looking at it, they would say, okay, I'm going to check this in 8 hours, right? I'm going to have one day a week where I just create for myself. I don't even go on Instagram. Or they might have, if they're getting a lot of hateful comments, we had a couple of people who said, I just have my husband read them, right? Like, I don't even read my comments, but I still want to know the beautiful things that people are saying to me. So I have someone else filter them for me. So that's kind of the first strategy. The second strategy is, I think, a little more counterintuitive. It's actually going deeper into the comments themselves. We call this depersonalizing the critique. So they might say, someone commented, David, your podcast really sucks, right? You would kind of think, you might say, well, this person is probably just having a bad day.
No, I'd say, wow, somebody actually listened.
There you go. So that's one of them, actually. One is to say, wow, that person's probably having a bad day. This is sort of flattering that they even are thinking about me at all. But if they said, David, you made a mistake on minute 17, and that really ruined my day, right? You're saying, this is really amazing. They're listening so deeply to my podcast. We had one person say, this is kind of what drills into the soul of why I do this. Like, this person was going through each of their kind of music videos that they were posting and like finding little errors throughout. And they're like, this is amazing, right? And so this depersonalizing scene critique is actually positive. And the last thing they do is what we call distilling personal standards, which is basically just saying, okay, when I started doing this, before I went viral, before I had all this fame, what's my reason for doing this, right? What is a good post to me? They don't totally go in that direction, right? But kind of returning to that for a period of time and balancing that with sort of the home run posts that are done kind of for the audience, that makes them, the combination of these three strategies in particular is really powerful for helping people see their work as sustainable.
Julianna Pillemer is a management and organizations professor at NYU Stern. Julianna, thank you for sharing your research with me. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is great fun.
Coming up next, were you born finding snakes scary, or did you just inherit that from your parents? I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Are you terrified of snakes but kind of don't want to be? Well, there's a real good trick that I can tell you, but you'll need a time machine. If your parents acted towards you in a certain way as it came to snakes, you might have not been so scared of them. This is all according to a new research study. We're here with someone who worked on it. She's a psychology instructor and snake lover, I believe, at the University of Regina. Her name is Denée Buchko. Denée, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So snakes in children, the very thought, I think, to most people would cause them a great horror. Why are so many people scared of snakes to begin with?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? That's the question that I had. That's the question that kind of spawned my interest in this kind of research. So, as you mentioned, I'm not afraid of snakes. I've never been afraid of snakes. I've always really loved snakes and all reptiles. So that is what I was wondering as I embarked on this journey of my degree and getting an education, getting my master's degree in psychology. I wanted to know why such a large proportion of people in our culture, which is mostly a North American Western thing, had such a disdain towards these creatures. And that's what we kind of see in our study, or that's what we kind of look at.
I think the naive thought about this, and I'm sure it may not be the full picture or even true at all, is that early cave-dwelling humans had to deal with snakes and maybe also spiders in caves, and so a little innate, evolved fear would be a good thing. But that doesn't account for the fact that so many people are not scared of these things. How do we end up with this fear? How do we end up not having this fear?
Yeah, okay. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. Sorry. There is a not small pool of people who would argue that something like this widespread aversion towards snakes or fear towards snakes and spiders could be due to something like an innate mechanism to protect ourselves that evolved over time. Evolutionarily, this theory possible, but there's not a lot of great evidence for it. So when we look at the research on babies and really young children, including the study that I ran, none of these children and none of the very young babies that we have run studies on are afraid of snakes. We don't see indications that they're afraid of them. So this is something that looks like probably develops as children interact with our culture with other people. And what we see, or what I have found, is that it has a large amount to do with the way that we talk about these animals and the way that we represent them in the greater culture as well.
So how are we talking about these animal snakes that cause kids to become so scared of them before we talk about how we can intervene and make them not scared of them?
Okay, so one major thing for sure is the way that we talk about snakes often tends to be a lot more objectifying than the way we talk about other animals. So when we talk about snakes, often what we see in parents when they're talking to their kids, or just individuals when they're looking at pictures or viewing them, they'll refer to them not using any pronouns, so as it, rather than if you see a squirrel or a bunny rabbit running down the street, people are more likely to say that, oh, he's so cute or she's so cute, rather than it. So this objectifying language can contribute to us thinking about these animals as being different than other animals. So just conceptually, if this is the way we always refer to them and we don't do that for other animals, they're different, and different sometimes means scary. The other thing is using negative language towards these animals.
Slimy, slithering fangs, things like this.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things that we saw in the study that we did is that parents did, at least 50%, around 50% of parents tended to say at least one negative thing about snakes when they were looking at that picture book. So, and these negative statements about snakes do influence how children think about them, which is another finding. So, speaking about them negatively, oh, that one might bite you, even though you're looking at a picture. Speaking about them in objectifying ways that also deny them any kind of just even basic mental states like, oh, she's hungry or she's afraid.
So let's talk about what you did with kids to get them to be not scared of them. You sort of anthropomorphized snakes, or you wrote children's books that, gave them a personhood and gave them positive narratives, things like this?
So yes, anthropomorphism in a very mild sense, because we're dealing with a still very biologically accurate book. So the book doesn't attribute any uniquely, exclusively human properties for snakes, but it does make the message, according to lots of research, a little bit easier to digest and kind of integrate. So rather than saying the snake woke up, the snake drank water, the snake hid under a rock, we would say she woke up, she was thirsty, she found some water, she was afraid, so she hid under. So nothing super anthropomorphic, just a different way of talking about them, the way we usually talk about other animals.
And when you did that, what did you find children ended up feeling about snakes?
So when we use language like this, if we avoid negative language, if we use non-objectifying language, we find that children are much more likely to think about snakes as being similar to other animals, where if we don't have these kinds of interventions, they tend to think about snakes as being very different from other animals.
But with tarantulas, that's all not true. Like 9 out of 10 people in Australia die every day from tarantulas. They are deadly. They can kill you at any minute.
Tarantulas are actually not all that venomous. There are lots of venomous spiders, for sure, but tarantulas aren't all that scary.
I know. They're gentle, which is so bizarre because in my greatest fear, they are not gentle at all. I wish my parents had done that. I wish my parents had introduced me to spiders in this way so I wouldn't be so scared of them.
Yeah.
I guess to like the wider point, parents have a lot of control over what their kids end up fearing in life, don't they?
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think that there are a lot of unanswered questions that we have still. This is just one very small part of what may be responsible for the broader phenomenon. I can't say for 100%, with 100% certainty that this is the only thing that contributes, right? But from what we see, these things that we do, the way that we talk about them and represent them, it definitely has an impact on how children think about them. And with that fear being completely absent in childhood, something has to happen that we're exposed to as we grow up that results in us thinking about them this way.
Now, how young do we intervene to try to get kids to not fear certain animals that are really no different than any other?
Yeah. So I would treat them like any other animal. Give them some education, just basic education on the animal and what they might do on a daily basis. Just including them in your repertoire of stories, even from just beginning to starting reading them books and stuff like that would be super helpful.
Is there a wider point here about how like cultural or familiar influences can affect a children's feelings on a variety of topics?
I mean, I would say so. I think that there are broader implications for this for sure, just looking at the way that we represent things in culture and talk about things. So, of course, that research would need to be done. We haven't done that research, but I think that would be a good pointing place for sure.
Denée, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks for coming on and sharing your research with me. I do concede spiders are wonderful creatures. They just terrify me, and I wish they didn't.
That's fair. We can work on that.
Denée Buchko is a psychology instructor at the University of Regina. Coming up after the break, Famous Last Words, the Netflix docuseries where late actor Eric Dane sat down for an interview designed to air for after he was gone. These post-life specials, Legacy on Tape, and the strange intimacy of goodbye, what do you think of them? Because that's what we're about to discuss.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
New year, new me? Cute. But how about new year, new money? With Experian, you can actually take control of your finances. Check your FICO score, find ways to save, and get matched with credit card offers, giving you time to power through those New Year's goals you know you're going to crush. Start the year off right. Download the Experian app. Based on FICO score rate model. Offers and approval not guaranteed. Eligibility requirements and terms apply. Subject to credit check, which may impact your credit scores. Offers not available in all states. See Experian.com for details.
Experian. We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The last show with David Cooper.
Eric Dane, the actor, probably best known for his roles in Grey's Anatomy and the show Euphoria, has sadly died. And we are going to discuss his appearance in Netflix's Famous Last Words series here with Caitlin Green, a media personality and co-host of the Jan Arden podcast. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
This Netflix series, Famous Last Words, this is the second installation of it. I haven't seen them, actually. You have. Walk me through the premise of this series. I believe it's kind of like a Danish idea before Netflix snarfed it for the English audience.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a Danish format, and I think the translation from the show from Denmark was like The Last Word, something to that effect. But basically what it is people who I think might feel that they are towards the end of their life will sit down and record their last words. So Jane Goodall did this. Now, whether or not she was aware of the fact that she would pass on, she was obviously older. And so she recorded an episode of the US version for Netflix. And then the most recent one is Eric Dane, who'd been struggling with ALS for quite some time. So he clearly knew that this was going to happen at some point. And the idea is that these sort of celebrities and public figures record this, and then after they pass, the episode releases like very quickly. It's the same way that you'll notice a lot of media outlets will immediately have like an obit for a celebrity. They have it all pre-written. It's kind of like that, but it's like a lot more touching and heartfelt. And so Eric Dane's was released over the weekend. It immediately goes viral, and predominantly he is recording it for his two daughters. And that's why it's really, really poignant and heartfelt. And he has ALS, but I believe he recorded this a year before his passing, perhaps, just maybe under a year. So I had watched it, and I remarked to my husband that I thought he looked fabulous. I mean, he's an incredibly handsome actor, but he's obviously struggling and unwell and like not communicating in exactly the same cadence he might normally. But he is very clear-minded, and it was powerful. And I thought that he just seemed I was like, oh, this is how I would, if I was him, like want your kids to remember you. And he gives them sort of 5, I think it was 3 or 5 things to live by. And one thing that he said was he really wants them to fight. He wants his 2 daughters to fight. He talks about how much he's fought with this illness, how happy he still is in spite of being very sick, and that he felt like he had been knocked down many times in life and he continued to get up, and that was his superpower, was his resilience. And I was like, man, every single person could hear this message right now and take something from it.
It's kind of a remix of it's not the destination, it's the journey, but framing it like the journey involves a fight and the fight gives life meaning. Is that kind of what he was saying?
Kind of, and just really that, like, everything in life is not going to always be easy. You may have disappointments in your personal life. He was divorced. You may have disappointments in your professional life. I think every actor in Hollywood has no shortage of those. You may receive a devastating diagnosis like he did when he was told he had ALS. But I think the fact that he said, I still love my life. I'm a happy person and I want you guys to be happy. Like, that's such a nice gift to give to your kids at a very sad time in their lives and this sort of troubling transition. And I just thought this might be a rare moment where television is doing something good for humanity. Not everyone's going to want to watch this. It's obviously kind of somber and touching, and you may not want to go there. You may just want to watch another episode of The Office, which is also understandable. But I liked this and I thought this is a nice little something they're doing. They stole the right content from Denmark with this one.
And the Swedes have their death cleaning, where they clean up their homes before they die so that they pass on to their loved ones in a state where the papers are in order and there's not mess and you got to deal with your clutter and junk. And now the Danes have this record a message before you die to speak to the people you love after you die. You get these nice kind of like death narratives from the Nordic countries, which I kind of like, I got to say.
It's true. And we really avoid death a lot. And I certainly understand why. But when you realize that it is this inevitable part of your life, ironically, that you will be touched by, you will lose people you love, you will lose things, you will experience grief. I think avoiding it altogether makes us all the more ill-equipped to deal with it in the first place. And so having these living obituaries from these pretty cool people, I really enjoy what they're doing.
I wonder, Netflix is pretty tight-lipped. Like, did they say this was coming out or Eric Dane just sadly passed and then they released it a few days later?
Exactly. Yep. I think that's what happened. And I don't know that anyone other than Brad Falchuk, the creator of this version of the show, knows who else is going to be coming up. But I think that he's working pretty hard. And he's married to Gwyneth Paltrow, and he is, by all accounts, he's a big name in Hollywood, big producer. And everyone says that he is like this kind, magic, rare person who everybody loves. And that's why he's so particularly well equipped to make this type of show.
And yet he married Gwyneth Paltrow.
Hey, I will not tolerate Gwyneth slander in my presence.
Hey, I said nothing. I love
her.
She is Gwyneth Paltrow. No, I do wonder who's in the back catalog.
Yeah.
It's kind of a morbid speculation, but like, I imagine if any celebrity has terminal illness, they could be potentially in this show.
Would you record one of these, do you think, if you were an older celebrity?
A part of me's like, no, because I'd be worried I wouldn't do a good job. But yes, I would. Yeah, why not? As a gift to like Miranda, my girlfriend, and the people the person I leave. And my cat, I would want my cat to see it.
I think it's a great idea. I really like it.
I really hope in my obituary, if I go like he leaves behind Miranda and Cat Tomato. I hope my parents put that in there. I guess Miranda would put it in there. Who writes an obituary? I don't even know.
I do think the family probably has something to do with it, but a lot of media outlets, like, it is just like a staff writer who does it.
You mentioned that getting old and dying is something you understand that people are uncomfortable with, but you think this show was a good idea. Another milestone you wrote to me that made you feel old, Toy Story 5.
Yes. Speaking of mortality, I did not think I was going to get a mortality check care of Toy Story, but I did, because they released a trailer for Toy Story 5.
I was like, I think 8 or 9 when Toy Story, the first one, came out. You were maybe a couple years older than me, something like that.
Yeah, and it was just absolutely devastating to realize that they know their fans who grew up watching this as kids are now older and have kids themselves. And so the Toy Story 5 arrives on June 19th, and the rough premise is that Woody and Jessie get passed over for 8-year-old Bonnie's new electronic tablet called a lily pad.
Oh, wow. The 8-year-old's an iPad kid and doesn't want her toys, Woody, and okay, all right.
Exactly. And so now Woody has a bald spot under his hat.
Oh, no.
Under his cowboy hat, there's a bald spot.
Didn't anyone tell Woody about Propecia or getting plugs? Like, come on.
No, he hasn't yet hopped aboard a flight to Turkey. But I just thought, I was like, why are we giving body horror to a doll? I don't know that I wanted this. But anyways, we did get the mortality check. It is Pixar is so good at doing the kind of like wink and nod and intelligent story that parents appreciate when they're watching it with their kids. So I do think that they're continuing with that format. But oh my God, the jump scare I did when I saw the photos of Woody's bald spot going around social media this weekend, I wasn't prepared.
The toys are aging with us, Caitlin. It is not a good feeling.
It's horrible.
It's wild that like we were the what is the age group from like 5 to 12? What do you call that age group? I don't even know.
I guess it's like young. It feels still like childhood a bit.
All right, but we were kids, and now we're. I mean, I don't have a kid, but I'm old enough to have a couple. I'm almost 40.
Yeah.
It's weird that we grow up with these movies. Do kids still love these films? Like, do they still perform amazingly well? Everyone.
Adore. I grew up watching, again, being a bit older when I watched Toy Story, but I still liked it. And now my son has a Buzz Lightyear in his room. He watches Toy Story. He loves Woody. He knows Woody. And it's really familiar. And like my son even loves Disney shows that were old when I was very young. He loves The Jungle Book from like 1964. He loves Peter Pan. I have to fast forward through a lot of the like racially insensitive parts now.
Oh, no.
But anyways, it's still like these things are timeless.
They certainly are. Okay, when we come back from the break, Caitlin, I want to talk about this movie, Wuthering Heights, which I was really excited about. There's some weird stuff going on. It stars Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, and that movie is doing weird things with promoting itself on social media. And also, I've got a gripe to pick with this movie about a song that they did not choose.
Oh.
By Kate Bush.
A soundtrack gripe.
I love Kate Bush. And she's got a song called Wuthering Heights. You know what? I'll tell you about it after the break. Caitlin Green's a media personality. She's a co-host of the Jan Arden podcast. We'll be back with more of whatever this is in a second.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Sierra has all the best active and outdoor brands you need. From athletic stuff, like a full court pickup game, swish, to athlete-ish stuff, like a half-mile stroll. Get those steps in. And for morning hikes up the mountain trail, good pace. To nighttime ghost stories from the camping chair. What a twist. Whatever level of active, Sierra loves it all. Head to Sierra or Sierra.com for the brands you want at the prices that let you do it all. From athletic to athlete-ish, Sierra's got it.
Where intellectual honesty gets witness protection from social prosecution. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Am I back?
You are back here with Caitlin Green. You're not supposed to talk. It is media news, pop culture news.
Sure.
Caitlin Green's a media personality. She co-hosts the Jan Arden podcast. Let's talk about this movie, Wuthering Heights. I didn't read the book as a kid, but many people did. Many people love this book. Did you read it?
I did, but I don't remember much of it because I was forced to read it for an assignment, and I had to read through, like I go through chunks, and it was very laborious for me because it's quite wordy, and I'm not a wordy reader. I'm more parsed back on the, Hemingway side of things than I would be to like the flowery language of Wuthering Heights. Plus, spoiler alert, it's a huge bummer. The content of this book and the movie is incredibly depressing.
Yeah, but it's sexy, it's swoony, it's romantic. I mean, like it's a fun book, but it's a dark book.
Yeah, it's a dark, sexy book for sure, and they've cast the two sexiest people on the face of the planet to star in the film. And so it had a lot of fanfare. It was very buzzy. The release was very buzzy, but the question is, was all of that buzz authentic?
Well, Margot Robbie, if you just woke up under a rock, star of the Barbie movie. For me, she's like not that hot because she's too perfect. She's like, there's nothing. You need something. You gotta have something wrong with you to be hot. It's the same reason I don't really like the Beatles. They're too perfect of a band. Like I like the Rolling Stones. Like they're off tempo, they're off key, they're gritty. Who knows if Keith Richards is even going to show up to a gig? I like things need to have blemishes in order to have great beauty, and she's too perfect, Margot Robbie.
Counterpoint, no.
You like David, the statue, you like that kind of level of perfection is what you're saying.
I mean, I just know that like I like Margot Robbie. If I had to switch teams, it's Margot Robbie like for life, 10 toes down. That's one of the hottest people I've ever seen in my entire life. When I saw her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, it's confusing to me how good looking this person is on screen. I can't find a fault. She's absolutely stunning.
That's the problem.
But she's intelligent though too, right?
Yes.
Like she has this movie production company and she's also like sort of low profile with her like not famous regular husband and their life in Australia. Like I can't find a thing to dislike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's precisely why I don't like her that much. I need faults. I need, give me something to work with here,
Yeah, that's okay. And I mean, Jacob Elordi now, like really the hottest man in Hollywood, apparently rumored that he's going to be the next James Bond, that he was offered the role and he's accepted it. Again, not confirmed, but very conjecture.
You mentioned switching teams. You now mentioned James Bond. Daniel Craig, young Daniel Craig would be my switching teams, especially Bond era.
I saw him and his wife on vacation several times with their family in person.
Jealous.
That's a good looking man. That's a very good looking man and a very good looking woman. She's very fun and she seems like a good time. They seem very happy. So I like that. I co-sign this.
Let's get back on track. Warner Brothers, this is like a media insider report, so I'll just add the word allegedly so they don't sue us. But Warner Brothers did something a little strange to promote this movie. It's the kind of thing that like seems like a good idea until people find out about it and then it makes them like you less.
Yeah, I agree with this, but I also don't think that what they're doing is like anything unusual in the world of movies in 2026.
They just got caught.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, well, you buried the lead. What is it?
Sorry, so they paid more than 2,000 influencers, allegedly, to post nice things about the movie. So they're paying for, fake organic reviews. And so what I guess they did is that they preempted negative remarks by screening audiences because they were worried from their test audiences that this wasn't going to land well. So they'll give media access to screeners. They'll give media access to like advanced showings. I've been to a bunch of them. And so they decided they're going to invite influencers to do this. But when you pay them to say it's good, that's a problem. It's one thing to tell a bunch of influencers, hey, come to this really cool advanced screening. There'll be swag. Maybe we'll have a cast member or a director will answer questions in an attempt to sway them, but to still level some authenticity to their reviews. If you're just going to pay them to watch it and say they liked it, it's a different thing altogether.
But you think allegedly, most big, media studios and stuff like this are doing that already?
Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I just don't appreciate like not saying it on its face. You should probably, if you're going to have people do posts, they should have to put that it's sponsored. They should have to put a hashtag that it's SpawnCon. And I think, I think even just having people see that they like it, even if they mark that it's paid, I still think that would have had a positive impact for the movie. So if this is in fact true, I think they went about it the wrong way.
So I like Charlie XCX, no shade on Charlie. Charlie did the music for this video. However, there is my dream woman, the best musician who ever lived, perhaps, Kate Bush. She has a track called Wuthering Heights, which is an amazing track. And she wrote it at 19. It's got these crazy like key changes, wonderful instrumentation. Like it's a complex, for pop music, it is just a wildly complex and amazing track. Her singing is amazing and has a huge vocal range. How she produced this track at 19, I will never know. I'm just saying, I don't know how she wrote this song. Anyway, that track should be in the movies, if only just played over the credits. Like, where was this track? Why wasn't this track in the movie? When I think Wuthering Heights, I think this track before I even think the book.
I think that they probably just wanted to be able to say, if I had to guess, that the whole soundtrack is Charlie XCX, because this is a very trendy movie. And so maybe they didn't quite tap into the perfection of Wuthering Heights as you saw it as the song.
Anyone who's heard this song has to agree with me.
I've never heard it, and I'm going to go listen.
I'm jealous for your future new experience.
It's like when someone tells me they've never seen The Sopranos. I'm like jealous that they get to watch it for the first time.
I feel that way about the sci-fi series, The Orville, but okay, never mind. Keep going.
Oh, keeping it niche. But I think that like Wuthering Heights is It's just this sort of like composite of everything that is pop culture right now. It's directed by Emerald Fennell, who did Saltburn. She did Promising Young Woman. It stars Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie. It's got the soundtrack from Charlie XCX. So maybe they thought they were going to go sideways if they included Kate Bush, but she is cool. Like Running Up That Hill had a big resurgence thanks to Stranger Things. So it's not like she's a bit of an indie sleeper herself these days anyways. So I don't know. I'm going to go listen to that song and get back to you. Maybe they offered it to her. Maybe they couldn't afford her. She lives in a castle.
Yeah, she just like lives in a castle, doesn't make media appearances, doesn't tour really. I don't think she's like made a media appearance in the last 15 years. I think she like when this her song went viral about with Netflix, she just like wrote on her old school blog about it. When she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, she didn't even perform. I think St. Vincent performed her Running Up That Hill on her behalf. Like she just hangs out in her castle, you know. So maybe she was like, I want a bigger check and you guys aren't giving it to me.
Or maybe they were like, we'll have this song on, but like you have to come to some of the red carpets. And she was like, I'm not leaving my castle, which fair enough.
Or you got to go to the studio with Charlie XCX and like kind of redo it, whatever. I don't know. We're speculating here, but yeah.
But it is fun to speculate. But yeah, I mean, the movie is getting kind of mid-level reviews. I haven't seen it yet. It's definitely something I would watch at home, but I wasn't prepared to be blown away because this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Emerald Fennell is like the directing auteur that people believe she is. I think Saltburn was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
What? It was okay. Yeah. Come on. It was all right.
It was verging on unwatchable for me.
Really? What? Why? What didn't you like about it?
I thought it was stupid and it was a music video. Like I think it would have made a great music video. I think she would make a great music video director because she can certainly like cast a mood and make things sexy and edgy. But I don't care about any of the characters.
You don't like 2 hours of vibe-based film. You want a little more substance there.
Precisely.
All right. Well, I thought it was a good vibe. It was fun, Saltburn. It was a little edgy, but I see what you're saying.
Oh, make him drink the bathwater. Like, also, too, Barry Keoghan, I'm sorry, but like, do not cast him as a sex object unless you have a very specific kink, because I don't buy it.
Caitlin Green, check her out on the Jan Arden podcast where she is co-host. Any, if I were to look at the Jan Arden podcast catalog right now, anything that I should check out?
We recently had a really great conversation with a therapist named Kate Robson, who just wrote a book. It's kind of like a mental health handbook on how to get through stressful times. But the foreword, the intro, was written by her great friend, director Sarah Pauly. And the two of them appeared on the show together, and they were just so fabulous. It was such a good conversation. So I think you should check that out.
I certainly will, as long as you listen to Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush.
I'm doing it right now, the second we get off.
All right, Caitlin Green, media personality. Caitlin, thank you for being here.
No problem.
Coming up after the break, if you haven't seen the videos, there's dogs pressing buttons, telling their owners that they love them, that they're mad, appearing to have language. But are they learning how to speak or just training us to be obedient humans? Well, we'll give you the science behind button-talking pets in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Monster Energy. Everybody knows White Monster Zero Ultra. That's the OG. It kicked off this whole zero sugar energy drink thing. But Ultra is a whole lineup now. You've got Strawberry Dreams, Blue Hawaiian, Sunrise, and Vice Guava. And they all bring the Monster Energy punch. So if you've been living in the white can, branch out. Ultra's got a flavor for every vibe. And every single one is zero sugar. Tap the banner to learn more.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
Your dog looks at you in the eyes, chooses one button from a bunch you've laid out on the floor that says love, and suddenly you're melting. But is that affection or just your dog manipulating you? What is the actual science behind dogs talking? Are pooches actually using language, or are we just falling for emotional manipulation? What is the story here? We're here with someone who researches this. His name is Federico Rossano, and he's a cognitive sciences professor at UC San Diego. Federico, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So these buttons that get laid out on the ground, most people have seen viral videos of dogs, quote unquote, communicating with them. Walk me through what's actually going on. Is it a product? Can I buy it? How common is it for people to have?
Yeah, so it's apparently a quite popular product. I don't sell them. I don't make them. I have no affiliation with any company that produces them. But basically is a button that you can record your voice on. For example, you can say outside or I love you or bye. And when it's pressed, it just reproduces that sound. So you could use it for fun with friends, with a kid, but it has now, in the last few years, been used with dogs and cats in people's homes. And people have been training their pets to basically use these devices to let them know when they want to go outside, when they want food, or when they're upset about something.
I'm struck by people immediately believing that when their pets use these buttons and use them correctly, that they're somehow speaking with them, that they understand language. My brother's dog, when he taps on the glass door of his back of his house, that just means I want to go outside to go to the bathroom. When my cat meows at me near his cat bowl, that means he wants to eat. How is pressing a button to achieve that goal kind of any different than just basic communication?
No, I mean, absolutely. It's learned in the same way. I guess the difference is, they can scratch the door and they want to go outside, but you don't know why they want to go outside. Do they need to go poo? Did they hear something they want to chase?
Squirrel,
is it because they're hot? So there could be a million reasons why they want to go out. And depending, if you knew why they want to go out, maybe you might open the door or not open the door, right? So I think the difference is there might be, for some people, it might be beneficial to know, for example, when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, when you want to play, when you have any other kind of issue. Some dogs communicate about being in pain. And I think, again, you might imagine that they're sick. You might know that they have a problem, but you don't know what body part they have a problem in, right? So the idea is that it's supposed to be, and again, I'm not making them, so I'm not trying to sell it. It's supposed to be another tool to kind of gather a little more information about what's going on through their minds.
But can these pets really conceptualize language? Like, can they express a complex sentence or a complex emotion like love using these buttons? Or when the dog presses love, it just knows that it gets treats and that's how it kind of learned it?
Well, my answer to this is like, when your partner says, I love you, do they mean it? It's like, you just don't know. All you get is like, they say it and then you might get a hug or you might get a kiss or something. So the reality is you never know for humans either, what it really means. What you know is the behavioral response that follows, right? And so I think part of what we're interested in is not making claims about them being able to have language, because I don't believe they have language. But what I definitely believe is that they can communicate. And of course, they can try to communicate concepts at a level of granularity that might be different from what we can make sense of when they scratch the door or when they bark. So imagine when your dog is barking, there's a problem, but you don't know what it is that they want. But if they could tell you what the problem is, for example, that there's a stranger outside, which usually is the Amazon delivery guy, maybe you actually know that it's not a big deal. But if there's actually somebody trying to break into your house, maybe you want to know that. And so again, barking just tells you there's a problem. You don't know what the problem is. And if they could tell you, maybe it could be helpful.
It could, but is it possible with these buttons in your studies, in your research, and what people say and videos you've seen and animals you've met? Can they do the level of like, oh, pay attention to the door because it's a mailman, or pay attention to the door because a crook's breaking in? Are pets able to press the right button for that level of complexity?
Yes, they definitely do, and they have done it. Now, we know for sure they can communicate reliably about some things that they care about and they want, obviously, like treats and toys and, cuddles or whatever. We also know that they definitely produce alert signals, right? So they can tell you that there's some problem. We actually have had instances of dogs that have alerted that there was smoke, and indeed there was a fire that was starting in the house. And so there could be things that, they could communicate about. Now, the question is that language, right? So, they could bark, and that would also tell you that there's a problem. I think what we can show is that they can combine some of these buttons in ways that are non-random. They're definitely intentional. I think we are far from being able to show that this is in any way more sophisticated than what, maybe a baby can do when combining two words together.
What are some of the most novel combinations you've seen? I mean, I'm sure you can tell I'm open-minded but skeptical about this whole thing. What would be an example that would convince me that these are dogs really communicating something about their internal state, combining concepts? What would be something like a good example of that?
Well, for example, there's several instances of dogs communicating about pain. So, for example, if a dog pushes belly out, and then 10 minutes later they vomit, maybe they were trying to tell you that there's some problem. If they tell you ear out, and then they have an ear infection when you go to the vet, maybe they were trying to tell you that they have a problem. So some of these combinations occur, and then of course it's like communicating about pain is something that in and of itself could be beneficial for people. And in the same way, of course, there might be information about what's happening around you, or most importantly, I think, is the fact that they can tell you when they're hungry, when they're thirsty, when they want things, when they're upset about whatever noise, for example, happening outside, or heat. And, dogs communicate about this in their natural ways. It's just that for most people, this might be hard to understand. And sometimes buttons can help make it a little more transparent.
Now, do dogs want to end up communicating to us a little bit more about poop and food than we would like to admit? I feel like that's probably on their mind more than most things.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, a lot of these dogs that I'm looking at go through what I call the poop phase, which is what my little children have gone through as well, where they really like to talk about poop and going outside and pooping and whatever. But in general, they love to talk about food, of course. They want treats, they want food of any kind. One other thing that they often ask about is for scratches, to be scratched, and I think that again makes sense. You're a dog, so why not?
It's not dissimilar to me. I asked for back scratches for my girlfriend before bed. I got an itchy back. The limits, though, like what are the limits for even the smartest, most well-trained dogs? You mentioned that at best these animals communicate like at a toddler level. Or is that comparison too kind of human-centric? In some ways they're better, in some ways they're worse.
Right. So the comparison to human toddlers is more in terms of like how many buttons they seem to be using and the fact that they seem to combine some of them. So when a child reaches about 50 words, they start combining them into 2-word sentences. And these dogs, there's at least a few hundreds that combine buttons in 2 or 3 buttons in a sequence. Now, of course, some of them have been trained like that, so that you produce this sequence and you get some kind of reward. And so that's not really impressive. But some of them seem to be doing it in novel ways. And of course, we need to investigate whether that's reveals more about cognitive intelligence than anything else. Now, in terms of the limits, of course, it's like there are some dogs that have 100, 150 buttons, which, by the way, seems crazy, but we know, scientists have known for many years that there are dogs that can learn up to 1,000 words, and that most dogs actually understand between 80 and 100 words in general from your vocabulary when you talk to them. So it's not unreasonable for them to be able to associate words with some meaning. And of course, if you think about it, you just associate the pushing of this button with something that happens in the word. So that's not that crazy. But the reality is most dogs struggle to learn buttons, or at least they learn maybe 3 or 4 buttons, and that's about it. The median is 9 buttons in our study. We have 10,000 dogs, so clearly there's like 5,000 that have less than 9 buttons. But as I said, there's a few more.
I guess in short, though, if my dog presses a button to say he loves me or she loves me, do they really understand that?
I think they understand it as much as if your 2-year-old tells you, I love you. Do they really understand that? They've learned that when they say that, it feels good and they get something nice back. Maybe a little hug, a little kiss. And if that's what they get because they tell you, I love you, I think that's okay.
Maybe that's just what love means. I don't like the sound of that, but maybe it is.
Maybe that's what it is, yes.
I'm here with Federico Rossano, a cognitive sciences professor at UC San Diego. Federico, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, would you take advantage of an unfair advantage, or would you reject it? What do most people do? I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
The only talk show with an introduction that mentions its own introduction. And that's happening right now in this introduction. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Begging for a mention. Yeah, you just want attention.
If you're handed a bigger slice of the pie, more money, for example, for no good reason, do you question the system or do you grab a fork and eat it up? Can we learn to reject unfair advantages just by watching other people do it? Well, that is precisely the question that Ross Otto's research tries to attack. He's a psychology professor at McGill University. Ross, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Advantageous inequality. What exactly is it? Let's start there. And why are most of us totally fine with it when we're the ones getting the advantage?
Yeah, so I think it'd be helpful to kind of situate this in a kind of classic paradigm that behavioral economists and psychologists have been studying this in. So there's something in game theory called the ultimatum game. And the idea is, okay, if you have 10 apples and you're what's called the proposer, so you propose an offer to me. Imagine you say, here's a split. I'm going to keep 8 apples and give 2 of them to you. Now I have 2 choices. I can either accept this offer, right, which seems unfair, and then I get the 2, you get the 8, or I can reject it and nobody gets anything. And so the interesting thing, right, is people get mad when you propose something like, I get 8 apples, you get 2. And they'll do what's called costly punishment. So they'll reject it. So they'd rather get no apples than 2 apples, just to send a signal that that's unfair and you violated a norm.
Well, that's comforting to know that I guess most people reject these extremely unfair outcomes. Some of us, I assume, accept them, though.
Yeah. So there's some kind of cultural differences across cultures, right, that have been studied somewhat. So people in different kinds of cultures are more likely to accept or reject those kind of offers. But that case is what's called disadvantageous inequity. So by being offered 2 apples, right, it's disadvantageous to me to accept the offer. But what if you flip it, right? So what if you propose to me, God knows why, you say, you can have 8 apples and I'm going to keep 2. In that situation, right, people rarely reject those kind of offers, right? Even though they're unfair in a different way, right?
A little less comforting, I suppose, about humanity on that one.
Yeah. So one kind of question is, what would make people more willing to punish this sort of unfairness? So this kind of concern for these high-minded ideals of, say, equality, right? So it's hard because I have to give up something, namely my unfair share, right, in order to do that.
Someone once told me, and I'm not a historian, I'm not even sure it's true, but a lot of the people who spearheaded the French Revolution were the sons and daughters of the aristocracy, which means they were the ones with the larger slice still fighting against an unjust system. I don't even know if it's true, but I've been told it is by someone who studied history. This sort of applies for money, like it can apply to salary. It can apply to like unfair advantage at birth, like if you're the son or daughter of a millionaire, billionaire kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Why does studying apples really simplify the problem? Can we infer things about like societal inequality from this apple test?
Yeah, so we did it with hypothetical money, so there weren't even apples at stake. So these participants, this was an online study. Basically, you're paired up against random people, other people on the internet. Now, these were actually fake people, right? So that way we could manipulate their own behavior. But what we wanted to do then was ask, can we teach people to learn to punish, right, or reject these kind of offers? That is, advantageously unfair offers. And so people, like I said, by default, right, don't tend to punish those offers because they benefit. But what we had people do was watch interactions between another proposer and another what's called receiver. That is a person who is being offered for example, apples.
Interesting. So you injected a little bit of empathy into the process. You watch it go down with someone receiving less than another person.
Exactly.
To see what happens once you've observed that.
And you can see what their preferences are. So you're acting as this kind of third party, but you're also the arbiter of justice in the sense of now you can accept or reject the offers. So what we see is people start initially accepting those advantageously unfair offers, but with certain kinds of what we call teachers, these are recipients, right, of these unfair offers who actually have a marked distaste for advantageous inequity. And so every time they see one of the offers accepted, they say, no, I would have preferred if you rejected that, right? And so the idea is after continual exposure, right, to these kind of inequity-averse teachers, people start to learn that they need to be rejecting these offers on the other person's behalf. And then what we did after that was asked, do these kind of preferences that you observe actually, are they contagious in the sense that, do you then start rejecting unfair offers on your own behalf when you're actually kind of in the hot seat? And the answer is yes. So there's this kind of transfer, right, or contagion of inequity averse preferences.
What's going on psychologically there when we observe someone else taking this moral high road, making a decision that's more fair, and then we're more likely to make a more fair decision?
Yeah, so we think what's happening, and we did a bit of computational work to kind of assess the different possibilities. We think people are not sort of learning by rote. Like when this happens, say punish or reject the offer. What we think is happening is people are actually starting to model the preferences of other people. So we're learning that this particular teacher, for example, has a distaste for unfairness, and it could be unfairness of either kind, right? So what we think is happening is they're kind of modeling the mental state of the teacher, and then by doing that modeling process, that's somehow causing a contagion in your own values or preferences.
Sounds like a fancy mathematical way to describe what I would just call empathy, right?
Yeah. So it's thought that in the case, right, of you offering me 2 apples and keeping 8, the presumed reason that I would be upset, right, about that is like spite or envy. Like you got more than me. But in the opposite situation, right, when you offer me 8 apples and offer to keep 2, that's more of a concern about fairness, right? It's a kind of more sophisticated concern, right? That probably has to do with, these kind of more societal level things rather than just thinking of yourself as an individual.
There's a couple more things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Is the takeaway here that if we visibly model fairness, like we can nudge others into a more egalitarian society?
Yeah, there's a suggestion here, however speculative, right? That but we can sort of teach these principles to people or impart these principles through a process of conformity. So if everyone around you is acting this way, you don't want to violate that norm, right? People want to model the sort of norms that are being displayed around them.
And the perhaps more uncomfortable question, does this mean we're maybe a little more morally malleable than we think? Like we can learn to reject an unfair advantage the same way we can learn to embrace it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that's a big question in psychology, right? Is to what extent are things like morality, right, or your values malleable? I would say within the context of this experiment, it seems malleable. One question is, okay, what are these people that were in this experiment going to do 2 weeks from then when they're confronted with some kind of, for example, advantageous inequity? Are they going to think back and say, oh, I remember now that teacher that I had in this experiment strongly preferred this kind of punishment, so should I be doing that?
Ross Otto is a psychology professor at McGill University. Ross, thanks for walking me through your study. This was an interesting chat.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Coming up next, marriage, which a lot of people think is the gold standard for happiness when you age, may not make older couples happier. Seems like moving in together is just enough. Take that, Mom. I'm not married. After the break, the research that challenges what we think about men, women, and love in later life.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Most people think of marriage as the gold standard of happiness for couples, especially for older men who supposedly can't function when they're on their own. But what if love's real boost comes from couples moving in together, sharing appliances, not swapping rings and getting married, especially as they age? I am here with someone who's researched this. Her name is Iris Wahring. She's a developmental psychology researcher at the University of Vienna in Austria. Iris, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
There's this cliche that older men kind of fall apart when they're left alone after a breakup. That question of whether it's true, was that the reason you looked into this research area in the first place?
One of them. So we had several different goals, but this was one aspect that we looked into gender differences.
What were some of the other questions you wanted to look into in terms of whether people should get married in an older age?
Yeah, so we looked at different relationship-related life events in like the second half of life. So most people were like in the 50s, 60s, 70s of age. And we looked into moving in, marriage, and also separation, like marital or non-marital breakup, and how this relates to well-being.
Relating to well-being, is that the major question you wanted to answer? Where people were in life, who they were coupled up with, and what was the shape of that relationship, and then how it related to their well-being?
We were interested in the event effect. So how does it affect your well-being when you move in with a partner, when you marry, or when you break up? So how does your well-being change during this process? So we had time points from before and after the event.
Now, this idea that men kind of rely heavily on their romantic partner as their main, perhaps only emotional outlet, what kind of truth is there to that?
There is actually a lot of evidence for that on like different relationship phases that relationships matter more to men in a psychological dimension, like they seek for a partner more than women do, so they strive more for relationship formation, benefit more in terms of well-being and health. They are less likely to break up, and they tend to suffer more after breakup. So this is found like when you look at a lot of different studies. But in this recent study, we did not find these gender differences. So there seems to be some variation depending on the study. And in our sample, at least, we did not find a difference between men and women in how these life events relate to well-being. Like when people experience breakup, it did not affect men more than women, while actually in our sample did not affect either of them on average. So neither older men, or it was middle-aged older men or middle-aged older women were on average affected in a negative way when they experienced a breakup, which was overall very surprising.
I'm sure. Now, what about other sort of life stages, couple life stages when you're a little bit older? Moving in, getting married, how did they contribute to well-being?
Yeah, so moving in was the most positive finding. We found that moving in was related to increase in life satisfaction. So life satisfaction tended to increase from before moving in with a partner to after. But it's important also in our study, we could not really differentiate because we used data from the Health and Retirement Study from the US. And in these data, it is not differentiated between single people and living apart relationships. So some people are maybe in living apart together relationships. They have a partner, but they don't live together and they're not married. And others are really single, not in a relationship, but they are all counted as single in the data we used. So we don't actually really know whether it was really moving in that was related to increases in well-being or just having a new partner. Don't really know, but we know that overall there seems to be a benefit of like new relationships when they are accompanied by moving in. We can say that in middle-aged and older adults in the sample.
So the big headline that moving in boosts happiness, perhaps when we look into it, it's either moving in boosts happiness or having a new partner boosts happiness.
Yes. So this is a big question also now for future work, I think.
I'm sure, but
yeah.
Another thing, marriage, does that add an extra level of happiness to an existing couple? And if not, finally, I have a good reason to tell my mother that me and my girlfriend are happy living together for, 5-10 years now.
Yeah, surprisingly, it does not add anything. So if people already live together and then they marry, it doesn't really make a difference. So their well-being does not increase, does not decrease, there's no change. there are other studies. So in our study, we had this middle-aged and older adults, and we just had 2 time points. One was like around 1 year before the event, and the other one was about 1 year after. But from other studies, we know that there might be like a short-term boost surrounding marriage. So it's like an effect about like being happy about, oh, this event is coming up, but then after that, the boost disappears again. So in our time frame, it makes sense that we did not see it. There were some other studies before that reported a boost through marriage in well-being, also on the longer term, but the problem often was that they did not differentiate between is it actually the marriage or maybe moving in or having a new partner, which kind of accompanies this event. And also, like some studies that found it were like from, for instance, last century, and there were like different kind of societal image of moving, living together without being married. So today it's very accepted, and it makes sense that marriage does not really add much because there's not so much stigma anymore against people just living together without marriage.
Yeah.
So it might actually be different in countries where there is more stigma against this relationship form. Maybe they do benefit from marriage, even if they already live together. But in our sample, I think among US people, not so much of a thing anymore that there's stigma against people who don't marry.
Sounds like a fair take. The last thing I want to talk about is the separation finding, which you mentioned earlier. It's kind of wild to me that there's no big crash in happiness after couples separate. Are older adults more resilient than I guess we thought? Are older men more resilient than we thought?
Yeah, so it seems that there are actually a lot of older and middle-aged adults are resilient when experiencing a breakup. I have to say also that in our sample, we also looked at emotional support. So whether people have like other resources besides the relationship. This was also one of our questions, how this affects the process. But we found that generally in our sample that people had relatively high levels of other like social resources, like other people they can turn to. So losing the partner for the breakup doesn't mean that they don't have any resources anymore. I think this is like the idea why it might affect men more on average, because they often lack these other resources. But in our particular sample, actually also the men, they tended to have less resources than women, but they still most of the men did have at least someone they could sometimes turn to apart from the partner. So it seems like that, yeah, there are a lot of older middle-aged adults that have resources, and because they do not struggle as much with a breakup, because they have people to turn to, and it would maybe be different among people who don't have these resources.
I guess that underscores the importance of having a community and friends as we age. Well, Iris, I appreciate you sharing your research with me and having this discussion. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Iris Wahring is a developmental psychology researcher at the University of Vienna in Austria. That's a wrap on our Monday night show. Thank you for tuning in. If you like the last show and want to watch video clips of us asking some highly educated people some seriously lowbrow questions, you can do that on social media. Give us a follow. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, also YouTube, and our handle is lastshow.pizza. Follow us on social media for video clips of the interviews you heard on this show. I'm David Cooper, and this wasn't the first or second show, but it was the last show, so there's that.
Firefighters risk their lives every single day.
Fridays on Global.
I'm gonna get you out of here, bud. This is the greatest job in the world.
An all-new Fire Country.
Firefighter Leon, I need you to make your own risk assessment. We're going in.
Deep in the woods behind you, there's a wildfire.
We're in the game now, boys!
TV's hottest show.
It's off. Be safe.
Keeps getting hotter.
Will you help?
Happy to.
Fire Country, all new Fridays at 9 Eastern on Global. Stream on Stack TV.